School gave me a scar right here a long time ago. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, USC fires Clay Helton. Vlad Jr. passes Shohei in home runs. And does Patrick Cantlay really deserve to be PGA Tour Player of the Year? But we begin today with the Raiders beating the Ravens in a wild overtime game last night. The Raiders thought they'd won the game early in the overtime, but the receiver's knee was down and the ball was placed at the 1, and 2 plays later, the Raiders were intercepted. The Ravens got the ball, and Lamar Jackson promptly fumbled for the 3rd time. Anyway, the Raiders won. Wilbon, did they impress you in doing it?
I mean, marginally. I'm just not going to be one of these people, Tone. No matter what the questions are about a week of football, I'm not going to go crazy. I'm just not. And the Raiders have won in other week ones. Gruden's won 3 straight openers at least, and, they're not there late at the end. It doesn't matter. So, I'm relatively speaking, in the context of 1 week of football, I'm impressed. I mean, Derek Carr, same thing. We've seen him. There's a chart, the graph that would go up and down. I guess it would go like this for Derek Carr. What are we going to do in 2 weeks? That game. You know what I was impressed with the game? It was entertaining as hell. There were scream out loud moments in that game. One, when they get the penalty after that ball is put back at the half-yard line. And then the deflected interception. These are scream out loud moments. I loved the game. I was more impressed with the game and back and forth. And Lamar Jackson had high moments and not so. Love the game. Not ready to start slurping either team just yet.
I'm going to go to Derek Carr for a second because in the 4th quarter and in the overtime, except for that one interception, the deflection, 16 of 24, 267 yards. In just a quarter and an overtime and 2 TDs, That's a lot. Let me get to the question here. I think Baltimore is in trouble. I don't think they can protect Lamar Jackson adequately. They don't have any sort of a running game, so opposition defensive players can tee off on him. He threw the ball 30 times. He ran the ball 12 times. Too much of the ball in his hand. He was pressured 55% of his dropbacks, whereas Carr only 20%. They're going to ask Lamar Jackson to do too much, Mike. I don't think it's going to work. They've got Kansas City in game 2. They could be 0-2. I like you. I don't want to get, what is the phrase? I don't want to get ahead of my skis after just 1 week. But I'll tell you something that's interesting to me. Mike, there may be, if 1 week matters, there may be a shift in the power from east to west. The AFC West 4-0. The NFC West 4-0. I mean, I think you have to. I think you have to take note of that at this point. And the one regret I had, and you don't have this regret, I didn't tune in to Eli Manning and Peyton Manning, and people called me like you and said it was really good. A few weeks ago, I said to an unnamed executive at ESPN, "Call it Manning Night Football." That's still available.
That was clever.
I heard it was great.
Tony,
I heard it was great.
I would have called you, but I look at the watch. I've got the cell phone in hand, and Cheryl Wilbon says, "Who you calling?" I got to call Tony. She goes, "Tony has been asleep." I said, "He got no air conditioner, so he might not be asleep." Yeah. But, look, you know how I like to watch 3 TVs at once on football days, right? Well, that's sort of tailor-made for watching, but wait, you can't listen to 2 broadcasts at once. So I tried to split it up. Look, we've known a long time how smart and funny Peyton Manning is. He's really smart and really funny. And Eli knows how to play off Big Brother and take him down now and then. There's a guy who's got a little brother about the same distance in age as Peyton and Eli, although there's another. They have more brothers. It was just great. It really was. It took 1 loss this season for USC to say, "See ya," to head coach Clay Helton. The Trojans lost to Stanford by 14 on Saturday at home, a game they were favored to win by 17.5. Helton went 46-24 overall, Tone, but his teams often, his critics say, came up too small against ranked teams. USC said in a statement that it's confident in its ability to attract a world-class coach. Do you see the Trojans landing a world-class coach, Tom?
I think this breaks down a little bit on age, Mike. I think if you are our age and you look at the USC program, you know how great it was for such a long time. I've got it in my top 5 all-time college programs. USC, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Alabama is my top 5. So someone like me, someone like you thinks they could attract it. But if you just started watching after Pete Carroll left and he went to Seattle the last 12 years, you see a toxic mess. You see a totally dysfunctional program with 4 different ADs and now 5 different coaches. They fired Lane Kiffin on the tarmac coming back from a game mid-season. They had Ed Orgeron. They had Ed Orgeron, and they passed on him, and he went and he won a national championship. They hired Steve Sarkisian. They got rid of him for public drunkenness, okay, in the middle of a season. Now they get rid of Helton 2 games into a season. So if you're asking me, I think big-name guys should want it, but maybe they don't. Maybe they're afraid of it. It looks like USC and Florida State are dumpster fires.
Well, see, I'm glad you looked at the issue from that angle. I'm going to look at it a little differently. Tony, all these schools that were great in 1970 think it's their birthright to be great forever. Nebraska fired a guy who essentially went 9-3 every year. How's it gone for Nebraska since then, right? Florida State, you and I the other day, we're like laughing, and it's not we're laughing at Florida State. We're laughing at the topsy-turvy nature of college football and who gets turned on its head now. The Blue Bloods, Tony, Notre Dame had years where they weren't a threat to do anything but look like clowns and be the butt of jokes. That era is over for college football, Tony, and USC seems to be the latest school that doesn't understand that. USC has bigger problems. USC doesn't understand a whole lot of stuff. They run afoul of a whole lot of things, the whole university, which makes me question the presidents sometimes of USC. But, Tone, all these schools that think they're going to be great because they were great in 1975 running student body right, that stuff's done, man. I don't know the SC is going to bounce back from this automatically or at all.
They had John McKay won national championships, John Robinson, Pete Carroll. They had O.J. Simpson. They had Lynn Swann. They had Charles White. They had Reggie Bush. When the guy gets out there,
Marcus
the Trojan,
Allen.
He's on the white horse and he's dressed up. And
it was great, wasn't
the
it?
sword in the ground. That Mike, when I grew up, football west of the Rockies was the University of Southern California. That's
Tony,
it.
You were right about you and I being of a certain age and time where, especially for people back east, where you didn't get to see USC every week. But when they were on and they played Notre Dame or Michigan or UCLA, it was so exciting, just the run-up, the people coming into the Coliseum. They play at the Coliseum, for God's sake. You know what? It may be over for them.
You're right. Well, you know what they ought to do? They ought to hire Urban Meyer because he's going to be a disaster where he is and get him back to college. Let's go to baseball. Vlad Guerrero Jr. hit his 45th home run last night. That's the most in the majors, one ahead of Shohei Ohtani. The Blue Jays won again. They now own the number 1 wild card slot in the American League, and they are 12-1 in September. Guerrero's very much alive for a triple crown. Wilbon, is it possible that Vlad Jr. could pass Ohtani for the MVP?
No, because the voters have already decided. And baseball writers, which, I sort of used to be at the beginning of my career a little bit, they seem more knuckleheaded and hard-headed and stubborn just for the hell of it. And they're married to their statistical analysis. And, I just want to separate myself from baseball writers and much of their prevailing thought. They've already decided that Ohtani's going to be the MVP. But, Tony, Triple Crown is not triple-double, okay? Triple Crown is not common. There have been 2 of them in the last 45 years. I understand that Ohtani's doing something that you can go back 85 years since you can find that thing, him and George Herman Ruth. So I understand the rarity of Ohtani's season and the greatness of it. But let's not, baseball writers, I ain't following them. The Triple Crown is a big deal to me. Because I can remember that Carl Yastrzemski and Frank Robinson did it back-to-back, but then nobody until Miggy in 2012 or 13 or whatever it is, man. If I was voting, I would seriously consider voting for Guerrero.
So I'm going to use my age here. I am even not old enough to have covered baseball in 1941, but I studied history of baseball, and I know what happened in 1941.
Yeah.
I know that Joe DiMaggio went 56 straight games, a record that will never be broken. And I know that Ted Williams went 406, a batting average that will never be topped.
Fascinating.
DiMaggio won the MVP. And I've got to think that maybe it was because value was looked at in terms of the Yankees making the World Series, the only playoff team then, and the
Right.
Red Sox finishing 17 games back.
Yeah.
Ohtani does something I've never seen, but they're 3 games under 500. They're not going to make the playoffs. And it looks like Guerrero's team is surging, and they are going to make the playoffs. And if he gets a Triple Crown as well, Mike, I think that becomes the hardest MVP vote in 80 years. I really do.
I'm with you.
I
Totally
really
with
think
you.
it's that hard.
Tony, the individual performances are so rare that it is difficult, man. It is. I just think I was going straight to the question. Again, if I had a vote, I'm not sure. I would wait to the last minute to give myself every chance because I'd be scared of getting it. I don't think you can get it wrong, but I wouldn't want to slight either guy. You know?
I agree with that. I agree. I think it's too hard to call, especially if he wins the Triple Crown. That is a really hard call. Let us take a break, but coming up, Jimmy Garoppolo and Jalen Hurts play each other this weekend. Who's coming off the better performance?
And did Patrick Cantlay really deserve the PGA Tour Player of the Year award, speaking of close, over Jon Rahm?
Usual game. Jalen Hurts may, in fact, be a pro quarterback of consequence.
That was a surprise, Tony. If I look at surprises of week 1, it wasn't that, Philly won because, you can't trust Atlanta. Don't ask me why I picked Atlanta in my confidence pool, even if I only gave it a 2 or a 3. But to go and just trash them like that, I don't think we were expecting that. And by we, I mean anybody who pays close attention to the NFL. I'm expecting Garoppolo to go and beat up on sorry, no account Detroit, even in Detroit.
Right.
But I wasn't expecting that from Jalen Hurts. And yes, the element of surprise is going to lead me to say, like you, Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. Next.
Toss up who deserved to win PGA Tour Player of the Year, Patrick Cantlay or Jon Rahm?
Cantlay got it. The players voted for him. He won 4 tournaments. Rahm won 1. Nobody else won 3. But one of those tournaments was a memorial. And Rahm was up by 6 strokes after 3 rounds, and they walked him off because of COVID. And one of them was the FedEx Cup. And after 4 rounds, Rahm had a better score than Cantlay, but Cantlay won because he had handicap strokes. So my scorecard says Cantlay won 2 and Rahm won 3, and one of those was the U.S. Open. That's a major. He beat Cantlay in every single major. He had 15 top 10s, Mike. 15 top 10s. If I have a vote, I vote for Rahm.
It's interesting, Tony, and I started off the day that Cantlay finished this off in Atlanta, I was like, Cantlay. But then here's what may persuade me to go the other way. Cantlay missed the cut in 2 of the 4 major championships. Rahm didn't. Rahm played those major championships better than Cantlay did. And I haven't used the word push in a long time. Wow. This, what? I mean, okay, it's not.
Don't do it.
Like, it's not
Don't
like
do it.
Major League Baseball and Ohtani and Guerrero. It's not
push.
like that.
You already pushed on the MVP.
Okay,
you can't
then
push twice. That's it.
Here's my tiebreaker. Rahm lives in Scottsdale. I'm going with my neighbor. That's him.
Of course. Domiciles.
Yeah. There we go.
Let's take one last break. Still to come, Clayton Kershaw makes a successful return to the mound for the Dodgers, but are the Giants out of reach for the Dodgers?
No. And how will the Saints weather a COVID outbreak?
Rahm was the best player in the world. Happy time, people. Happy 49th birthday, David Bell. Bell played 12 seasons in the major leagues, mostly as a third baseman for Cleveland, St. Louis, Seattle, San Francisco, Philadelphia, and Milwaukee. Bell had a .257 career batting average with 123 home runs and 589 RBI. You want to take a guess as to what David Bell is doing now? He's managing the Cincinnati Reds, one of a long line of unknown managers in the majors now named Jace or Brandon or Torrey or Derek. Guess their teams. Time's up. David Bell's grandfather, Gus, and his father, Buddy, both played for the Reds, so I am guessing David Bell knows every gas station and pizza parlor in Cincinnati. He's 181 and 185 as the Reds manager, and right now, he's got the Reds in a second wildcard slot ahead of San Diego and St. Louis. The Reds' upcoming schedule feels as soft as a pillow. 13 of their remaining 18 games are against the Pirates and Nationals.
One of the things, Tony, and baseball was my first love, one of the things I hate about baseball is how general managers and front office people have now apparently taken over running the ball club on a day-to-day, even from the dugout, which is why we don't know the managers. That's why we don't. Because you got all these geniuses taking credit and being given credit for running the team. I think that's awful.
Happy anniversary, Ken Griffey Sr. and Ken Griffey Jr. On this day 31 years ago, the Griffeys became the first and only father-son duo to hit back-to-back home runs in Major League history. They were playing for Seattle, and in the top of the first, they each took Kirk McCaskill out of the park. Senior was 40, Junior was 20. Another father-son duo, Tim Raines and Tim Raines Jr., played together on the Orioles, but never went back-to-back. In hockey, the Howes famously played together. Gordy, Mark, and Marty, both for the Houston Aeros and the WHA, and the Hartford Whalers in the NHL. There are many fathers and sons who have played the sport at the highest level, just not at the same time. The Mannings in football, the Currys in basketball, Bobby and Barry Bonds in baseball. You know, there's talk that LeBron James will stay in the NBA until his son Bronny can join him. Well, if that's on the Lakers, LeBron James Jr. will be the youngest player there by 40 years.
Hockey and horse racing seem to have a glut more than the other sports, Tony. Let me just say this about Ken Griffey Jr., who many people say has the sweetest swing maybe ever in the history of baseball. He's on the short list, right? He has the same swing on the golf course. It's that sweet, and he's that good there, too. Unfair.
Happy trails to Clayton Kershaw's absence from the mound. The 33-year-old Hall of Fame-bound left-hander started for the Dodgers last night for the first time since July 3rd.